Halfway through New Who's first season, Dalek came along and took it to a whole new level. It's a marked contrast to the juvenile romp of the previous two-parter. This is a tense action thriller that reinvents the Daleks for a new generation, turning them from figures of fun back into terrifying monsters. It also allows Christopher Eccleston to give his most emotional performance yet, so it's definitely the high point of the season so far. It opens in the futuristic world of 2012, several years after multiple Dalek invasions which nobody seems to remember. I guess they technically haven't happened yet. One thing they did get right was the billionaire Van Statten, who has enough power to pick and choose the president. It seemed far-fetched at the time, but now it seems perfectly believable. That's just how the world works nowadays. His alien collection includes the head of a Cyberman, which would have been a big shock at the time. And it was again, as I'd completely forgotten that part. So the Ninth Doctor did face a Cyberman after all. More importantly, he also has a Dalek, chained and silent, but still as deadly as ever. The Doctor's confrontation with it brings up all his trauma from the Time War. Eccleston digs deep and vents several lifetimes' worth of accumulated rage and bitterness, which tells you more about the Time War than countless Big Finish audios ever could. Rose also has a relationship with the Dalek, but without the Doctor's preconceptions. She just sees it as a poor, tortured soul who's worthy of sympathy. It's maybe a bit naive of her. Arguably, she should have trusted the Doctor's warnings and kept her distance, but then there would have been no story. Instead, one touch from her brings it right back to life, because of all the time particles on her skin, which is apparently a thing now. All of the old TV critic cliches about the Daleks are refuted one by one. The sucker turns out to be a very effective method of killing someone at close range. The bumps generate a force field, and it can levitate to climb stairs. Obviously, it did the same thing back in Remembrance of the Daleks, but only the hardcore fans were watching that, so it needed to be readdressed in order to stick in the popular memory. And it's the best looking Dalek we've seen in years. The tatty, rickety props of the 80s are long gone. This is a deadly killing machine that glides around smoothly and unstoppably. It's like the platonic ideal of a Dalek, extracted straight from the brain of Raymond Cusick. It all builds to a final confrontation between the Doctor and the Dalek, with Rose in between. The two survivors of the Time War have both been changed almost beyond recognition, with the Doctor wielding a big gun and desperate to wipe out his final enemy, and the Dalek contaminated by Rose's emotions and feeling fear for the first time. It's a highly emotional scene. Nicholas Briggs gives possibly his best ever vocal performance, and it actually makes you feel sorry for the Dalek. The guest actors include Corey Johnson as Henry Van Statten. He's a wonderfully sleazy character, torturing both the Dalek and the Doctor for his own benefit. He does get some justice at the end, but really should have been killed off. Anna Louise Plowman was a familiar face from Stargate SG-1, so it was exciting to see her in a British show. She plays his assistant Goddard, who gets her own back on him at the end. I would have liked it if she came back at some point, but maybe she still could. And Bruno Langley plays Adam, who Rose flirts with outrageously, even though Mickey was her boyfriend just a few days earlier. She does not waste any time. He's a bit of a weak character and not the kind of person you would expect to be a companion, however briefly. But of course, this is just setting him up for his spectacular failure in the next episode, which I'll talk about next week. Robert Shearman is known for writing some of the more experimental Big Finish audios, such as Jubilee and the Chimes of Midnight, but this is much more straightforward. The basic idea of a lone captive Dalek is taken from Jubilee, but the setting and characters are all completely different. Both are really good examples of adapting the same idea into different mediums, and in fact both versions have been novelised, so there's even more versions you could compare if you want to go down that rabbit hole. Shearman clearly knows Doctor Who very well. The Running Through Corridors books he co-wrote with Toby Haydock give insightful commentary on every episode from the 1960s and 70s, and they were invaluable companions when I watched those eras myself. Hopefully the third volume covering the 1980s will come out eventually. The DVD has a 10-minute cut-down version of Doctor Who Confidential, which crams a lot in. We see the Dalek model being demonstrated for the first time. Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper talk about how iconic they are. The designer talks about making it chunkier and more powerful. We see Barnaby Edwards getting into the costume, and Nicholas Briggs doing the voice. Rob Shearman explains how he wrote the scene of the Dalek going upstairs in order to silence the critics, and we see Murray Gold conducting the orchestra, and Neil Gorton signing up the mutant. So it's basically all the good stuff with no padding. The commentary track has Nicholas Briggs, Bruno Langley, Robert Shearman, and Dave Houghton, who did the visual effects. Shearman talks about the earlier drafts and what he had to cut. Houghton points out which shots were real and which were CGI. Langley enthuses about working with Billie Piper, and Nicholas Briggs recalls rehearsing with Christopher Eccleston. It's a good commentary, but with 4 men in it, it's quite hard to tell who's talking at any time. Overall, it's a really strong episode, re-establishing the Daleks as a major threat, and giving our biggest insight yet into the impact of the Time War upon the Doctor. I'll give it 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my reviews, then check out my Patreon for more. I'm currently reviewing 8th Doctor audios every week and 7th Doctor novels every month. Next week on this channel, The Long Game. Not one of the best this season, I don't think, but we'll see how I feel about it now. So press subscribe if you don't want to miss my thoughts on that, and I'll see you next time.